email and whatnot, our little post in the Slack channel. Tonight we'll be covering advanced persistent threats. It's going to be pretty cool. So how many of you is your first time at one of our meetings? All right, decent chunk. So I'll spend some time on this slide. And I know for those of you that have been to a couple of our meetings, I always stress this. Please get on our Slack. Our Slack is where we do all of our communication. We do all of our events. We put out sign-up sheets. We post, if we get like job openings at some place that our buddy over in Towson University, he sent us some job applications to cyber operations company over in Baltimore. So if we get anything like that, or if we're trying to organize anything at all, social events, it's all going to be done through the Slack. In layman's terms, get on the Slack. So you'll be in general. That's where we'll have most of our talks in the general channel. We'll also have a questions channel if you have any questions. There's also the lab channel, which is our current ongoing project. So we have 5 different committees here. We have content, finance, public affairs, outreach and recruitment, but I know all of you can read. So content and info is led by Corey. You want to give a little spiel?
Yeah, basically we're kind of in charge of bringing you new information that we feel is important to you guys every week. So you'll kind of see that as soon as AJ is done talking. It's basically kind of the rest of the meeting that you see in here kind of falls under our purview. We talk about news, and we also try and put together these cool demos that you guys get to do every week. So
cool. So Corey's doing great, and then we have finance led by Ryan.
Well, Kyle.
Or Kyle.
Here. Yeah, he's gonna be a little late, but yeah.
But yeah, so run our funds, run fundraisers. We are having about $5,000 from Northrop Grumman apparently on the way, so that'll be fun to manage, and we'll be able to do some cool stuff with that. Public affairs is led by Jai, and Jai's not here right now, but that is basically running all of our social media, reaching out to local news organizations like TNR, which I think Isabella is working a little bit on. And basically just making us look good in the media. Outreach is a huge part of our organization. We're actually trying to build up this more right now. We have a couple members who are working on it, but that's basically going to our businesses, like our US Bank visit that I'll be talking about here in a little bit, outreaching to high schools, talking about cybersecurity to high schoolers, and all that good stuff. And then recruitment is led by Greg. Where are you, Greg? Yeah, so Greg runs all of our recruitment operations and retention operations, so setting up social events, whatnot. So if any of those sound interesting to you, we're going to have a sign-up sheet for committee positions. We're going to post in the Slack. Feel free to sign it out. And then, yeah, hop into the research lab. We got $200,000 from the state of Ohio to build essentially a cyber lab, and we're going to be turning it into a bleeding-edge cyber operations center or security operations center. So if any of you are interested in helping out with that, we meet Mondays from 4:30 to 8. It's just a come and go. You can come, sit down, work, help us out, leave whenever you want. But yeah, it's pretty chill, and I'm not going to go too in depth with that because there's too much to talk about.
By the way, I don't know if you went over, but sign in on Slack, please.
Yeah.
Slackbot posted a link to a Google form. Just sign in. We have to take attendance for UC, and if we get all these people signing in, we can get a bigger room and stuff. So you sign in. It takes 2 seconds. All you have to do is put in your looking number and shit.
And ask for more money. All right, so go through the announcements real quick so you can stop listening to me talk. September 18th, which I believe that's next Tuesday, right? Yeah? Next Tuesday? Am I crazy? Or is it the Tuesday after that?
yeah, it's next Tuesday.
It's next Tuesday. Okay, yeah. So the NSA is going to be coming and visiting us. They're going to be bringing an Enigma machine, World War II cryptography device. So if any of you guys are interested in that, you should totally come through. That's basically going to be at the same time as our meeting. We're also going to have Vicki Baker, who's the head of everything cyber here at UC, which she's going to be talking about NSA scholarships and work opportunities. So I know a number of you have been asking me questions. Hey, how do I, what's the process for applying? Is there anything I need to do? So Vicki will be a really good person to talk to. This is really awesome. We just got this finalized, I believe, yesterday. So we're going to be touring through US Bank's Security Operations Center on the 13th floor of their building downtown. That's going to be Friday, September 28th at 2 p.m. We're going to be putting out a sign-up sheet to see who can make that time. there's probably around 10 to 12 spots open, so we'll be first come, first served basis. And then last but not least, I'm sure many of you have heard about this. I know UC's kind of pushing it, some professors are, but Rockwell is having a security seminar September 20th from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. It's a great networking event. I would go, just talk to the people you can, because you never know, it might turn into a co-op, and that's what we're all about, getting professional experience. Did you post the...
Yeah, right now.
All right, so the U.S. Bank visit sign-up sheet is posted now. So for all those who are interested, it's on the general channel in Slack. All right, we don't have anything else on our public affairs, but you can check us out on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And with that, I will stop talking, and we'll turn it over to Corey for the weekly content, and then we'll get to cyber sexy stuff.
All right. Where's my slides? Okay. I guess I'm just...
Yeah, it's on my laptop.
All right, that works. All right, so this first one, there's a mobile spyware that we're going to be talking about, and it's going to be a little different from most of the time when you hear about these mobile spywares, because normally it's a virus. But in this case, it's being put on devices by parents in order to spy on their kids, their spouses, whatever. They're paying to have this service done. You can take that however you will. But these guys got in trouble recently because it turns out that they had this online accessible database where you could just go in there and just query the database and just pull out records, which included passwords, phone call logs, text messages, usernames, location data for all these phones, credit card information. All of that was on this database, and it was all just go to this web page, pull the information. So that's not so great. And that was...
Count that a breach if they're just that ignorant?
So this was from Krebs on security, I believe, and he talked to them, and according to them, they checked the activity that had gone through there, and there was very little activity.
Oh, okay.
But he was also looking at the activity, and he was like, well, some of that was me, but not all of it was me, yeah. So maybe? So yeah, no, if you know anyone who's got something through mSpy, I'd have them, change credit card, whatever. This one's pretty big. You guys might remember, if you were here for the first week of the semester, I talked a little bit about WannaCry. It was really big last year, because this crypto worm was getting on all of these companies' servers and encrypting them and holding them for ransom. Well, while we had said that we believed North Korea was behind the attack, now they have gone ahead and they have officially charged Park Jin-hyuk. I have no clue if I said that correctly, but that's his name. And he's also they believe, gone under the alias Pak Jin-hek. And he's been linked to the Lazarus Group, which is who we believe was behind the entire WannaCry thing. The same group's also been seen attacking the Bangladesh bank. They almost stole $1 billion. So, and you'll get to know a little bit more about these guys because this is called an APT, and that's kind of the subject for today's meeting. So I thought that was pretty great. But it's nice to see that we're actually charging someone over this, because you might remember a Sony hack from 2015, which is also done by Korea, and nobody got charged. So it's nice to see some changes there, I guess.
Well, if he ever leaves North Korea, he's getting arrested. But
yeah, he'd have to leave North Korea.
To an ally, I guess.
Can I get a show of hands for if anyone does not know what Tor is, just real quick? Don't be afraid. Okay, so the Tor browser, it's basically what you're going to use. I'm not super fluent on it. AJ can probably give a better description, but basically if you want to hide who you are, it goes through this weird little series of encryptions basically for packets, so that the way I understand it, it's 3 different computers each have a decryption key, and so it has to pass through each of those 3. Am I doing this right? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just boil it down a little bit. So Tor is how you connect to the dark web, is whatever it calls it, .onion domains, whatnot. And on the Tor network, people say it's safe and it's encrypted because along every single hop to wherever you're going, your information, so you're on one computer and you go to some website, well, your packets of information saying, hey, I'm querying this website, needs to go from point A to point B, but from point A to point B, there's like maybe 5 or 6 other jump points on the Tor network to get you there. Each of those are hosted by somebody who's contributing to the Tor network or running the Tor browser as a bridge, which you can get way down a rabbit hole in that. But essentially, you keep encrypting or you keep adding levels of security through each node that you connect onto the chain, and then your exit node decrypts everything. So a lot of times, if the government, like I know governments do, they own a lot of Tor exit nodes. So even though you might think that your traffic is being completely, encrypted and unviewable, all they have to do is just sit on the exit node and they can see everything you're doing, which is why you should always wrap your Tor traffic through a VPN first. That's besides
when they come here on Tuesday.
Yeah. Well, here you go.
Yeah, so there's this company, they do this is a big reason why I chose this article is I'd never heard of this being a thing before. They are exploit vendors. So what they do is basically these security researchers, they do the research, they find something called a zero-day, which if you don't know, that's basically an exploit that's never been found before, or reported at least. No one's reported having found it before, so it's basically undiscovered. And these guys say, hey, when you find something, come to us, and we'll pay you a bunch of money. And then we're going to go to the people who are our clients and are paying us money, and we're going to tell them about this zero-day before we announce it to the public, and we're going to tell them about the countermeasures. And then at some point, they'll go ahead and release it as soon as their clients are patched. And so earlier this year, they offered $1 million to anyone who could find a zero-day exploit in a Tor browser. And they just released a post, I believe it was on Twitter recently, that they had this vulnerability for Tor, so they may have just paid out a big chunk of money for that. But there's this plugin on Firefox that comes bundled in the Tor software called NoScript, and the idea behind that is just to prevent any sort of malicious JavaScript from being able to run. Unfortunately, there's a vulnerability that's basically allowing any JavaScript to be run. So if you have Tor 7 anything, they highly recommend that you update to Tor 8.
Jeez.
And then just a quick rundown of some of my recommended reading for the week. This guy from the UK just got arrested recently. He's been doing a bunch of bomb hoaxes and bomb threats and whatnot. This is like the 3rd time that he's been caught doing this, and they're only just now arresting him for some reason. British Airways had a breach, leaked like 380,000 something credit cards, and Apple had to remove one of their top grossing apps from their app store because it was stealing your personal information and sending it to a server in China. So if you're interested in any of that, you can check out any of those links. Alright, to move on to the big content of the meeting for this week. I talked a little bit about it earlier, but APTs, those are called Advanced Persistent Threats. Does anyone not have background? Just quick show of hands. Okay, good. That's great. So these guys they're typically known to be like super stealthy, they're hard to find, and they're always working on something. They may not like have an attack out every day, but they're always working on their next attack. They never stop.
They like to hoard 0 days.
Yeah, no, these guys, like when you find out about a 0 day that got used against someone, chances are it's probably these guys who discovered it, because they have so much money coming in, because most of the time they're government backed. So governments like Russia, China are paying these, the best minds in their country in terms of cybersecurity or offense to just look at things and find these 0 day exploits that they can use to get into their targets. Because that's another big identifier for an APT, is they have a goal. They were put together to do something, maybe to hack a government institution, maybe a specific corporations, like if there's specific corporations that they disagree with or something, or even financial institutions. Like North Korea has had some of their APTs going after South Korean banks, cryptocurrencies, etc.
Might add one thing too, since we're talking about APTs and their hoarding use of 0 days, and we just talked about WannaCry a little earlier. I think it'd be pertinent to bring up the shadow brokers which were, I guess you could consider them kind of an APT, but or maybe a part of some no such agency that essentially leaked 0 days to, WikiLeaks. And these 0-day exploits, 2 of them that they leaked, Double Pulsar and
Eternal Blue.
Eternal Blue, those 2 0 days were used in WannaCry.
And you can find out more information on that if you go back to the meeting from the first week of the semester. I do have links on there. So if you just go to the website,
So
those links will
sometimes
be
they
there.
steal from better APTs.
Yeah, sometimes. So this here, you've got this big map. So there's this company called CrowdStrike, which basically kind of likes to go through and name these guys. A lot of times, like, they'll get these comic book artists or whatever to make like a picture of them. Puts a fun image on something that is kind of not so fun. So what you'll notice is that this naming convention works with some word and then an animal, and the animal is going to identify the country that you're from. And then the first word is typically supposed to be some sort of identifier for what you look to do. So panda is China, bears are Russia. For some reason, Iran got kitten. I don't think kittens are much there, but at least they got a real animal. I don't even know how to pronounce it at all, so I'm not even going to say North Korea's, but it's some sort of...
Shalima. It's a mythical winged horse.
Yeah. Yeah, so at least Iran got a real animal, I guess. And then we didn't mention it, but you see where it says hacktivists and criminals. They don't necessarily have to be government sponsored. They can be some other group. For example, you see Deadeye Jackal there. So
Singing spider.
yeah.
So one thing that I would like to point out, there is this one IPT that's not listed up here called Charming Kitten, and I guess just to try to get a better idea of, you guys are getting an idea of this, what do you think Charming Kitten does? What do you think their main way of breaking into industries and governments are?
Adult dating sites, catfishing, adult content,
Anyone?
pornography, it's gotta be.
Anyone else?
Fishing.
Social engineering, right? Social engineering. So they charm, they, ease their way into a corporation, or they compromise, just one person through social engineering and then spread throughout there. So it's interesting that CrowdStrike came up with this naming convention. It does sound kind of funny, right? But we actually do use it in the industry quite a bit, especially, at least where I work, and it's getting more and more widely adopted. So.
Yep.
So what would be the difference between a criminal organization and a terrorist organization?
So terrorist basically can mean, like, you see hacktivists as well, so they are out there, they've got some sort of ideal, maybe they're anarchists, whereas a criminal, they are out there purely for their financial gain. That is their reason for being there. So if you're a hacker for the mafia or whatever, as opposed to being like part of Anonymous, and maybe you're hacking like I don't know, like a government official that pissed off Anonymous, I don't know, or maybe you were hacking.
I mean, when it gets to this, it's kind of hard to really draw a clear line, right? Because, I mean, you're dealing with, a lot of times trying to even characterize the actions of an APT is really tough, because they're operating with custom rootkits, they're trying to cover all their tracks as much as they can, they're trying to hide from everybody else any kind of identifiable factor as to what they do or how they do it. So, after you see a whole slew of attacks, typically security researchers, CrowdStrike will then say, oh, okay, well, these people kind of teeter on more of these, okay, F the world, I'm going to just try and mess something up, or I'm just trying to steal confidential information and financial information from
Yeah, and because these guys use 0-day so often, just because you found them doing one thing doesn't necessarily mean that was the end goal. That's another big thing is typically when you come across like a script kiddie, who are basically the people who are buying exploits from people who write them and using them to do sub-specific tasks, it's much more direct. I'm looking to get in, accomplish this task, and be done with it. But with an APT, there could be months or even years of, you infiltrated them, 4 years ago, and you're just waiting for the right time to do that specific thing you want to do. Because there is another motive, and they don't have to worry about, you know, getting a quick return on it because they are being backed a lot of the time by these governments.
I mean, the craziest APT that I've seen was a engineer that you know, works for a company, and he had a Facebook account and was kind of an introverted person, and ended up talking to this chick who also had a Facebook account for roughly, you know, 8 months to a year. And it was all typical conversation. They were sending pictures of their pets to each other. They were talking every day, sending pictures of them and their friends and whatnot. Actually, like, building up a full-on long-distance relationship between this engineer and this person. Well, come Christmas time, he gets a Christmas card sent to him through Facebook Messenger, which is like Christmas card, like .exe, and you open it up, and it has little trees, and you can click the bells, and it has pictures of him and her and their cats or their pets, and it's like, oh, so and so, and I love you so much. It's been great getting the last year to know you. Sincerely, so and so so. The second he opened that up, dropped the back door, tried to start scraping information on his computer for specific keywords for a project that was happening right then, and start exporting it straight to China, IP from China. So, I mean, firewall and network detection systems were able to help catch this person, but I mean, the level that these APTs operate at is pretty insane, and that's, I mean, that was probably a crappier APT because we were able to catch them. But
if you want some examples of an example of a really successful APT, try looking into Fancy Bear. They're a Russian APT, and they have done some pretty crazy stuff, and they've been successful.
Hacked applications used
like you guys might remember, you heard about a hack at the Olympics this year. That was attributed to Fancy Bear. So, just, if you're looking for someone to look into, that's a good one. All right, so now we're going to do a breakout session. I'd like you guys to try and get into groups of about 4 or so, you know, maybe like half of each of these tables, and then maybe 2 of these can get together. And I shared a link in the general of Slack to a Google document. I'd like you guys to just take a look at that. We've gone through and we've looked at reports on a lot of these APTs, and the members in my committee were nice enough to help me break those down and summarize them for you guys. And what I'd like you to do in these groups is just go through and look for things, trends, maybe things that stand out a little bit, and just try and look into those a little bit as a group and learn about some of the things that these APTs are doing, and then we'll come together and we'll just discuss what you guys have found.
Put yourself in the seat of a cyber analyst or somebody who's analyzing these events, trying to figure out, you know, what are their tactics, tools, and procedures. That's something that you'll hear more and more if you get more into the security field. But it's all about the tactics, tools, and procedures, trends, anything that you can find that, you know, this group or this region likes to operate in some way with these kind of exploits, phishing, you know, social engineering. But yeah, so at this point, I guess, go ahead, let's group up, you know, we'll split the tables down. This is supposed to be a time for you to kind of get to know the group of people next to you, and also learn a little bit about advanced persistent threats. And yeah, if you have any questions,
If anyone's having trouble getting to that Google Doc, let me know. I can repost it or something.
Feel free, I think every group should have like one leader or a scribe that kind of takes notes, or however you want to do it for when we talk about this.
Send up a Chipotle fundraiser, and that doesn't have some stuff from us. The only thing is, we have to use this for your partners. After that, we'll still get but I don't know what's the problem. And then we got
Put together a list of those things.
It'll be a script saying something.
I think it's against UC.
Well, what if it was a fundraiser?
Pretty much, yeah.
And of course, you don't have to get out.
A lot of high-ranking officials.
So let's be real. You don't get a sushi. You have to grab the
So to see if anyone says congratulations on $400.
Yeah.
I figured out what it was. I started a military.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, not a new space. Putting my stuff on
Put your other
my
thing, put your other thing in the cyber UC, look up underneath your private. So you can stay on cyber UC.
Yeah, so I can just click on it. Because I have to like go to a loading screen.
We've got engineers that drink so much.
Yeah, he sounds like an
That's a good idea. I wonder if we can get a hold of something like that. We'll invite a professor thing and get it free. Want somebody to drive closer to it?
Hey, did you take a look at I saw you were already working at the browser.
I got it done.
You got it done?
You weren't in class today, were you?
You didn't really miss anything.
I ate a bunch of Chipotle and drank like a half a gallon of milk, and so I had to take a nap.
That's, I bet.
I can show you what I did for the after that. Pretty straightforward.
I was just gonna watch that video and I figured that that's how you got that.
I know a lot of people.
I'm sure you literally just
Literally just
would you use to
I don't know if they need it. I think it's on video.
well, they both are.
I don't know. It might not be regardless.
Yeah, I saw somebody literally using this thing.
It's basically just like the same thing. I like the dark theme, but it's like a bunch of different colors.
Yeah.
So it's literally just like you click and drag these boxes here. So like this is a web browser object. This is a text box. Here's a button. It's just like a whole thing drag and drop there. And then you can see the code. Everything's named just like philosophy. Like when you click the back button, there's the code browser one, which is the web browser object. So it's the exact same code. So you don't have to know it's a built-in class. It's super easy.
Okay. Well, should I even watch that video then?
Just follow the instructions. It's pretty easy.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know if you can do that on this phone. That's pretty cool. You can't visually see exactly what it's going to So how do you affect so one of the tasks was to make it so that you
Said to modify text.
modify text on the screen.
I don't know if that means just like modify text.
No, I think it meant like, because he was giving examples about how so I was thinking about changing every other word to regardless of what
I don't know. I didn't really get a really good feel for what it was like. I'll ask other guys in their class to do it here for so the whole thing for this class was like,
so this is
Yeah. Do you have that?
If I was going to do fishing, so I need to direct you can list all your emails and then fishing.
I wonder if I'd have to find the Mac equivalent. It looks like it's like it got
Visual C# application, so it might have to be on C#. It's still the it's like things on the platform. Or no, it's the
You're right.
I know what you're talking about. I don't understand what you're talking about.
I was talking about the framework. It's the framework.
Memory allocation for you, so added layers. It's who cares?
Yeah,
It's terrible. It's just like C#.net. It's like essentially the same.
Like they, I see
C#.
like these are
And then it's somehow I don't like it. It's somehow what
they all have the
bring it into Word.
I don't know why.
That's just like that's just a form that's an author type for
Wait, so do they consume?
And so I would just like click web browser, click and drag the box. I had a web browser.
Really?
Yeah, exactly. And you can connect just like a text box, and you have to like navigate.
I gotta figure out how I can get Visual Studio then.
It might run on Mac or Linux, I'm not sure. I don't think it does that. mSpy won't do it. Oh, there you go.
What's new with Visual Studio?
I don't know if Windows Forms will work on Mac, but Visual Studio might.
There's still like so many like you want to watch so many like Spain streams that were like KU live stream. I think I wanted to watch the World Cup.
Say, Mike, if you know anybody in that class that can clarify.
They're talking about something different.
Yeah, we're talking about yeah, one of the assignments is to build a browser.
It's Katie, right?
I don't know why. Hey, that guy was in my Domino's computer architecture class last fall. The professor.
Oh,
yeah. He was in that class with us. He was really cool.
do you want to just
No, he was in architecture. Like 7,000 level multi-class that was online took. Yeah, not Comp Board, but the it's actually Are you on Comp Board now, or are you doing that in the spring?
I'm doing the next one, yeah. Which is funny, because it's just I have to take 2 classes, so technically, that's
Usually I can let it slide for some reason.
Teresa said, she said, ooh, I gotta get me some extra. I used to have extra. I really like it. That's no matter how good it is, it's going to be people still there was a guy, there was a one related to Harvard or something. Don't you know college?
email was sent via was real. But then so like they were like and they figured out that at the time like they couldn't tell what someone was doing their phone. They figured out this is only one person on campus using Tor at the time the email was sent, and so they found that guy.
He's not doing it for visual.
Yeah, you have to build a witness once.
They brought him in. He didn't want to take it. What's the whole story there?
You can't use them to build a witness.
That's why I use just
You can't use them to build a witness. I think when this one was just are they cross-platform?
So, you guys put them in I'm not sure exactly. Yeah, no, it's an hour. That's the funny part. It's like a $5. Yeah, I use it.
I didn't know if you could do that.
Yeah, you can.
I wonder if
Well, they weren't really
We steal a bunch of cargo.
Yeah, because it was just the most purchased.
So, I feel like people use it for
Hey guys, does another 5 minutes sound good, or do you want more time?
Another 5 minutes? Yes, no? Because we're going to go around and all talk about our stuff.
5 minutes? All right, we'll come back in 5 minutes.
I just assumed you had
Those are really good videos.
So most guys
If you use like
oh, it's a hack they want to, energy level not already out, so probably there's some versions of it. Yeah, it's probably dark side it's like you're hacking people that
set that, so now it's going to recognize all my whatever.
I really don't know.
So like if I want to change
I didn't realize they were flying Japanese. I did not pick up on the use
I didn't know, I just looked behind me.
Yeah.
I don't know when they turned around and you were like,
Hey, did we learn anything from today?
They have to come with our forms.
Oh, yeah. Isn't it just the thing we do?
Oh, chicken shit. I can do a CI.
We get another
CI. It's everything.
It's like a friendly suggestion. Think about it.
I feel like everyone at UC has like some asterisks, and that's the way you're
All the ones that are at the meetings.
Complicated.
They wanted me to answer Japanese, and I was like, I can explain all this shit.
I'm like sort of a moderation for sophomore, and
Well, it's mostly he
I'm
just
not even
needs to-
officially a homebrew.
There's a lot of research.
GPA high enough.
It stands for
Summer semester, 38-year-old man.
it lets you create a window.
Like military drill sergeant.
It's a popular one.
Good
I don't have any binders.
I know. People aren't volunteers anymore.
They made a file that they made them spread to like every computer, only with the hope of specifically making them designed to do nothing on like 99% of computers. And it somehow made it.
You Ryan Young. You Ryan Young. I met you at Berkeley. That's barely that. You came up and talked to all my like friends out of nowhere. Yeah. Something about. I'm like, we're talking about software engineering, and I don't think you knew we were engineers, but it was completely funny.
I know there was WannaCry got shut down because there was like
Yeah.
Alright, why don't we go ahead and reel everyone back in?
Something about how you know software engineering.
Alright, so maybe we'll start in the back. If someone near the back, maybe, if you could raise your hand, talk about something you thought was really cool, or maybe something that you learned while you're going through these.
So we found out that most of them like to use spear fishing. So they would do some violence. China really likes governments, military, and defense. Iran really likes masquerading as the aviation industry, going after energy. Russia likes going after foreign governments.
What was the last one?
Russia likes going after foreign governments.
Is there anything else interesting you guys found? No, that's awesome.
Alright,
Cool.
maybe someone else? Hey.
So, what we noticed that most of these groups are going after popular things that everyone uses, email or Microsoft Office or Adobe, or things that are high use, mostly what people are looking for.
Yeah, no, you'll see that a lot.
So, I mean, something to go off of exactly your point there. Supply chain attacks. I mean, we haven't seen a ton of them, but those are going to be getting larger and larger, and that's exactly what you're talking about, supply chain attacks. Let's hack Adobe and then push a malicious update to everyone that has Adobe Flash installed, you know? So, I mean, we saw it with CCleaner last year. CCleaner got popped, and everybody who installed CCleaner got popped also. They updated. Yeah, anyone else?
So, just about virtually every country uses malware of some kind. These emotes are kind of basic, obviously. They all use backdoors. I think every single country, without exception, had a spear phishing campaign of some kind. All of them seem to target infrastructure, not a lot of private companies. They hack stuff like military spending or like border patrol or even dams in some cases.
Dams, infrastructure. Yeah, we're lucky here in the United States to not have experienced true like cyber terrorism yet. I think Ukraine's probably the only country that's really had much of a glimpse into that, where hackers have literally had taken down their power grid and whatnot. I'm afraid
Hackers have turned their own artillery against them even.
Yeah. APT. Yeah, they hacked the application used by the artillery squads for aiming and getting the coordinates for where they should have their artillery shells land, and skewed it so they were missing their targets.
That was another one, I believe, by Fancy Bear.
Yeah.
So
Let's go this after tip.
So when we were going through everything, we were identifying what might be their possible motive for each attack. So for Fancy Bear, They just show off and they do what they want. Things going on. Yeah. From China, they seem to really like to lay low and just gather information, do lots of phishing, spy on people. I mean, not people, but governments are really construction and whatnot. For Iran, it's just deleting information, trying to destabilize everything that's around them.
And see, this is interesting to see the trends of the different areas in the world. It's very cool stuff. Very cool stuff. Anything else?
North Korea. Can you explain North Korea because
it's like North Korea's going all out with everything. They got zero-day vulnerabilities. Like the methods of compromise are different in every country, but it's probably because of their different like reasons for compromising. Like China's only spear phishing, which is pretty simple. But then for North Korea, you've got a whole bunch more, and that's also for past attacks on like countries. So you have to use more complex methods of compromise.
Yeah, North Korea is experimenting with a whole bunch of different ways that don't just mainly include spear phishing. While if you look at past attacks on for North Korea, it's also a multitude of countries too, even stretching to the Middle East.
Yeah, it's interesting.
And what you'll see as you look more into this is a lot of these other countries, specifically countries like North Korea, like Russia, are really sinking a lot of money into their cyber offense field because here in the U.S. we kind of are the leading edge of technology over here compared to the rest of the world. So we're the one everyone wants to steal from. So we're sitting here and we kind of really need to be investing in our defense, whereas the rest of the world's like, you know, no one's looking to steal technological secrets from North Korea. You know, it sucks for them, but that's just the way it is.
That's what I do night and day, man. I can't sleep. I'm trying to steal from North Korea.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if everyone's trying to steal from us, would that mean that our defense for cybersecurity is really good?
Well, yeah. I mean that's why you see like here in the U.S. we're kind of behind where we need to be, but we are trying to invest a lot more money into cyber defense. This is a really great place to be if you want to be making the money in the future.
There's also a few government programs completely paying for people getting graduate degrees in cyber defense and stuff like that. I mean, I have a whole bunch of national labs working on that stuff and have been for decades, honestly.
A big reason why this chapter exists is because of how much the government wants to improve the focus on cyber.
I mean, the government threw $2 million at UC the past year for one thing, that's to improve cyber security knowledge and kind of create experts. Create subject matter experts in this field, and I mean that's kind of our mission too. There's literally not enough people out there that have that are even learning this stuff, that are even digging down deep into this stuff at all, which is good for us, but not necessarily the best for everybody. Let's go to the back, that half, or were you all together? You're all together. All right, let's go to this table right here. Anything you guys found interesting?
They're all countries that the U.S. has an uneasy relationship with.
Yeah.
Well, that was maybe a little bit my fault, just because those are the countries that I happened to pick as a sample group.
So, did anyone notice that there's no naming convention for United States APTs?
We really don't have them.
If you look at CrowdStrike more, you'll see there's not an APT for the U.S. that's named. That's because CrowdStrike is an American company.
Whoa.
So. We do have APTs. I believe like the NSA has one called the Equation Group or something like that.
Tailored Access Operations.
They tend to be like Mac related in some way. Like those were the guys who worked on with Stuxnet. You guys remember that?
We don't know who did Stuxnet.
We don't know who did Stuxnet, but we know who did Stuxnet.
And there's been some really interesting malware associated with some agencies that may or may not
some
be.
Three-letter agencies.
May or may not be associated with the United States. But one thing that I'd like to talk about before we wrap things up is attribution. So we all sat down and read some of these articles on like what all these APTs do and where they operate out of. But a real question that we should all ask ourselves is like, how do the people that found this information know this information? And I mean, we're probably going to get into this in a whole other meeting to spend more time on just attribution alone and what is considered good attribution, what is considered not good attribution. So like, if you have a zip code of where somebody lives, that's a pretty big area, right? Or if you have an address of where somebody lives and a street name, that's better to say, okay, I know exactly where this person's at or where they're going to. So, I mean, IPs, they're low fidelity. If you have an IP from Russia, doesn't mean Russia's attacking you. Doesn't mean it at all. IPs are extremely easy to spoof. If you have a domain name, that's a little bit better for attribution. Those sit on top of IPs, but they're easy to cross-correlate with things because you have a domain sitting across multiple IPs if they're shifting the domain around. Hashes of files, if you know what I'm talking about, MD5 hashes, it's a unique way of, a mathematical way of kind of representing the contents of a file. That's high fidelity if you know that that's a bad file and you see that hash somewhere. So we'll get more into that in another meeting, but
AJ kind of touched on it a little bit, but that kind of gets into something that you have to worry about for attribution called false flag operations. Is there anyone in here who does know what that is? Do you want to say what that is?
False flag operation is when one group or person is masquerading as someone else, intentionally trying to drop hints that, hey, I'm China, even though it's Russia.
And like hacking, like so if they're trying to instigate a fight, it's like China pretends to be Russia and hacks the U.S. and then instigates the U.S. taking action against Russia, and then it's a whole diplomatic shit show.
There's some very interesting documents that have been leaked on how certain agencies try to spoof their operations as being from another country.
Does anyone have any questions?
Okay.
All right. Feel free to stick around. If you are part of the Content Information Committee, or you maybe like to be part of it, just maybe stick around for like another 5 minutes so I can talk to you guys.
But other than that, I hope you all walked away, learned something new, got to meet somebody next to you. I'll reiterate what Corey said. If anybody's interested in getting more involved, leadership, whatnot, hang around. Let us know.